Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The Carney government's controversial Bill C-5 is one step closer to becoming law. It passed third reading in the Senate Thursday afternoon, but not until after some serious debate on whether or not the legislation respects Indigenous rights. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Bill's third reading, projet de loi, troisième lecture, number 1, Bill C-5.
Prince Edward Island Mi'kmaq Senator Brian Francis spoke for more than 40 minutes on why he would not support the legislation. He said the bill is moving ahead too quickly and not in the spirit of reconciliation.
Why are we rushing on such a consequential bill that deserves care and attention? We had the option to slow down. That was the message delivered clearly by National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepinek last week. She asked us to take the time to do things properly and reminded us that is how we build a better country. By listening, by working together, and by not rushing reconciliation.
Nova Scotia Senator Paul Prosper, who is also Mi'kmaq, spoke for more than half an hour on the bill. He said his office has received racist threats because he questions the legislation.
When I came out against the rushed nature of this bill and spoke about the need to amend or even delay its passage, a racist vitriol and threats to my office was experienced. It was so intense, some staff asked for permission to not pick up unknown phone calls. This isn't right.
Alberta Senator Patty Laboucaine-Benson is Métis. She said the Trump tariff threats necessitate the quick passage of the bill and that Indigenous consultation will happen on a project-by-project basis.
I understand the impulse to want to slow things down, but we really are at a moment of potential crisis. As the president of the Manitoba Métis Federation put it, we're facing the threat of economic war and the risk of Canada's economic engine to break apart, and in a way that will harm low-income and vulnerable Canadians the most. There will have to be consultation on projects. That's where the consultation has to happen.
Nova Scotia Senator Colin Deacon added Prime Minister Mark Carney has been firm that projects will not move forward without Indigenous support.
The PM's really put forward, the Prime Minister's put forward a really clear precondition on any project that he wants to consider under Part 2, which is that First Nations, it has to have Indigenous support.
Is it your pleasure, honourable senators, to adopt the motion?
In the end, the bill passed third reading without amendments. It will now go to Governor-General Mary Simon for royal assent. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Two elected officials from Métis Nation, Saskatchewan say they're being blocked from doing their jobs. They claim they're being shut out of the roles they were democratically elected to fill. Video journalist Rachel May has that story.
This is about the integrity of our governance, about the right of elected representatives to do their job they were chosen to do, about ensuring that Métis women are no longer silenced for speaking up.
MNS Regional Representative Sherry McLennan of Western Region 2 and Wendy Gervais of Western Region 3 have been suspended from the Provincial Métis Council after a harassment complaint and investigation. On January 21st, a video of MNS CEO Richard Quintel went viral. In it, he named McLennan, Gervais, and two others, accusing them of ongoing harassment. On January 31st, the four women filed a formal harassment complaint against Quintel. MNS launched an independent investigation. While results are confidential, MNS says Quintel's complaint was founded, the women's was not. Gervais was asked if she thinks she and McLennan are being targeted because they're women.
All I can say is from my own experience. And from my own experience, a woman at that table, I have not been allowed to work in a safe environment, at least something that I feel safe in.
McLennan says that confidentiality limits what she can say, but urges citizens to remember that what's happening now can't go on.
I want you to know that our voices are not being heard and our Constitution is not being followed. And our Constitution is our Bible. That's the way of our land, and it's not being followed. So it's affecting all of us.
They say they were told they can return to provincial Métis Council meetings only if they publicly apologize to the CEO. MNS released a statement confirming that without an apology, McLennan and Gervais will remain barred from meetings, stating that the results of the 2025 MNS election in May have no bearing on their responsibility to provide public apologies to the CEO. The sanctions ordered by the PMC suspending them from their duties on PMC will remain in effect until such time as the public apologies are received. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
After almost a decade, a nonprofit organization representing First Nations in the Yukon has elected a new Grand Chief. As Sarah Connors tells us, the new Grand Chief is eager to get to work.
Give another big hand to the new Grand Chief.
Mathia Alatini wants to build unity amongst First Nations in the Yukon, and now she'll get the chance to do just that. Alatini is the new Grand Chief for the Council of Yukon First Nations, or CYFN. She was elected at its annual General Assembly near the community of Teslin on Wednesday.
Thank you so much, and sheesh.
After 4 lengthy rounds of voting, Alatini came ahead of former Grand Chief Ed Schultz 31 votes to 23. While 33 votes was needed to win, Schultz conceded.
I am going to respectfully bow out of this contest and say to Mathia, you have my support.
I want to thank Ed for conceding and keeping goodwill within the tent, and really look forward to the next mandate of bringing people together.
Alatini previously served as the chief of the Kluane First Nation and ran for the Territorial Liberals in 2016. One of her top priorities includes a recent resolution to merge the Grand Chief position with the AFN Yukon Regional Chief into a single role.
The first one that is mandated right now is building unity and looking at the organizational structure to respond to national files and territorial files.
Alatini is taking over the reins from Peter Johnston, who's held the role since 2016 and opted not to run for a 4th term. The CYFN Grand Chief and AFN Yukon Regional Chief positions will be amalgamated on October 1st. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Brooks Brook.
It's Thursday, and that means our Truth and Politics panel is here. Jennifer and Egon will join us after the break to talk about the legalities of pretendianism. Stick around. Welcome back. Can you be sued for saying someone isn't Indigenous? That's the title of a recent report by Michelle Ciza for The Walrus, where she outlines 2 cases before the courts where someone accused of being a pretendian has sued their accuser. One of those court cases wrapped up this week, and that is our topic for this week's Truth and Politics panel. Jennifer Lewitz is the CEO of Pusqua Strategies, and Niigaan Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Niigaan, Jennifer, great to have you with us. We'll start with you, Niigaan, and as mentioned, Michelle's reporting here brought to the attention these 2 separate court cases where individuals accused of being pretendians turn around and sue for things like defamation. Could these be landmark cases?
Well, just to, in the interest of transparency, I mentioned in one of those court cases that's in that article. So just on the honest side, I was in communication with some of the researchers that were researching some of the people who have been alleged to have complicated identities. If libel includes meaning, you can be sued for saying things that are ultimately in the end true, then it does create a rather challenging issue for those who are researching issues or complicated identities. Each one of us, when we are in ceremony or when we're in community, will ask each other, where do you come from? And then if someone doesn't give an answer to that, we'll continue to ask that. And unfortunately, when people don't give those answers, then the stories are often either found out or sometimes hearsay or sometimes a lot of piecemeal information or create the story. The problem ultimately is that we don't really recognize the membership identity codes of First Nations, Inuit, Métis organizations, governments. So that's ultimately what's at the heart of this issue, is that we have to be able to recognize and have a system in which Indigenous peoples recognize the legitimate ways, which can include adoption, which can include non-genealogy, which can involve a whole bunch of host of other issues, language, culture, identity. That's the problem here. And it will be a landmark case if people are sued for asking questions and doing research into others' identities.
Jennifer, how do you feel about people being sued over publicly raising concerns about someone's Indigenous identity?
Well, I think it's almost a little bit of a contradiction to be bringing in a Eurocentric court system in order to make decisions regarding Indigenous identity and the way we essentially view identity, measure identity, and define identity at the end of the day. Obviously, there's a lot of conversations around identity. There's people out there that define themselves as pretendian hunters, their goal to be basically to debunk whether or not somebody is actually Indigenous. And then there's the lateral violence piece where people are saying it's lateral violence to start calling people out and start putting them down, all of those things. And, as a pale-faced First Nations person, I face those questions all the time. And it's, it can be tricky when you're, a kid that's from CARE or somebody that's went through the child welfare system. Obviously, your disconnection to community is going to be there. And I believe as Indigenous people, we have to leave space for people to reclaim and feel comfortable going back to community and finding their way to be claimed by their community. But there is those really weird questions that are being asked about people that claim identity and move to the top of the totem pole in corporations and even Indigenous governance that find their way going to the top and their identity is questionable. Academics, all of those different areas, musicians. So there is questions, and I think we need to start strengthening the way that we facilitate identity amongst nations with membership codes and identity and all those things. But also as a society, really trying to understand how complex it is. But running straight to the court system is an area that I'm having a hard time kind of understanding why the court should be the ones even defending whether or not something is defamation when it comes to real legit questions that we have as Indigenous people.
Niigaan, one of these cases did conclude just yesterday on Wednesday with the woman who says she's Métis losing her defamation case against Atikamekw artist and activist Catherine Boivin. What do you think that ruling could mean?
Well, first of all, it's very difficult to prove defamation cases for a whole host of reasons. The level of harm, whether it is the same kind of something that can be monetary area where there's the same kind of claims of deep damage. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that case might have been thrown out. But the ultimate issue is that if people want to go to court, if they want to claim that someone's not or saying inappropriate things about them, they better have their ducks in a row. That they better have, this is a case in which you better be able to articulate clearly what is your relationship with Indigenous communities, what is it that legitimates your claim, and then therefore the position that you're in, which is often, as Jen points out, comes with a lot of money, power, fame, those kinds of things. That's what the issue is in the Indigenous community, is that you're taking a position, you're putting yourself into an expert position, you're influencing others, and ultimately by claiming that, you're harming if you are doing it inappropriately. I think it's responsible, but if we are going to hold people to account, and those people who are, they should be able to answer simple questions.
Jennifer, the Quebec judge here made it clear that this case was not about whether the plaintiff was Indigenous, but if she had been defamed. You kind of touched on this, but do we want the courts deciding who is or isn't Indigenous?
Well, I think it's because we're trying to measure whether or not, defamation is typically there because somebody has faced irreparable harm to their reputation because of the defamation at hand. The issue is that we are in a state, especially in Indigenous governance, of protecting spaces as well. Because when there is reconciliation on the table and there's government on the table, coming to the table, I should say, with, reparations or trying to, put monetary value on essentially reconciliation, there's also the bad actors out there that see that. They see that potential, they see new power dynamics, they see Indigenous governance at a grassroots level being formed, and there is power there. There is power within those powerful positions. There is power that exists in becoming influential, whatever it might be. And so we have to be very careful that we're not allowing these people to take into these positions when their identity might be questioned. But if we're getting to the point now where when we're trying to protect Indigenous governance and these spaces, and we're being sued for asking the questions, then where do we go from here? Especially when we're allowing people that might not even know the complexities around Indigenous identity to make the decision on whether or not the law was broken.
We'll leave it there, but we're going to talk about what's going on with the Métis Nation Saskatchewan over on the podcast. Thanks to you both.
Thanks.
Still to come here tonight, from the child welfare system and incarceration to college graduate and entrepreneur. We'll bring you a Winnipeg man's success story after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Jess Moore got up and close to this bumblebee spreading the pollen on a cool Monday afternoon. Thanks for sharing, Jess. You can send your pictures to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sun's out and 23 in Fredericton and Halifax. A sunny 18 in Kuujjuaq, 11 in Nain. Rain and 25 in Montreal, 22 in Chibougamau. Cloudy and 20 in Sault Ste. Marie, showers and 20 for Ottawa. 21 and cloudy in Thunder Bay, sun's out and 25 in Sioux Lookout. 23 under sunny skies for God's Lake and Norway House. Sunny and 25 in Winnipeg, Dauphin and Barons River. 28 with rain in Regina, showers and 27 in North Battleford. 26 with rain in Meadow Lake, sunny and 22 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, showers and 22 for High Level and Fort Chippewa. Sunny and 23 in Edmonton, sun's out and 27 in Medicine Hat. Showers and 17 for Vancouver, 24 with rain in Kamloops. 20 and rain in Prince George, cloudy and 19 in Dease Lake. 25 with showers in Old Crow, sunny and 18 in Whitehorse. 23 under sunny skies in Yellowknife, cloudy and 26 in Norman Wells. 11 in Sax Harbor, sunny and 28 in Fort McPherson. 10 in Cambridge Bay, 17 in Baker Lake. 6 in Resolute, 14 in Joe Haven. Growing up in Winnipeg can be challenging for some, but as Jeremy Joey Lequette shows us, with consistency and hard work, you can make a change. He's pushed through his struggles and has now found a new purpose in life, one he's sharing with others. Dylan Cloud explains.
Dreams were the only thing Joey Lequette had until he put action into motion. Now he has his life on lock for a new beginning. The only team he needs now is his kids.
I grew up in downtown Winnipeg, in the West Broadway area, where poverty still affects it to this day. So I grew up around there, and then around there everybody was either selling or doing drugs.
Lequette grew up in and out of the child welfare system, joined a gang, and spent time incarcerated. He was fortunate to get out of that lifestyle. Joey Lequette is showing us some of the changes he's made and how he juggles his life with his kids, his business, and work after being a graduate from RRC in plumbing.
Well, this is my plumbing certificate, so I could take this with me across Canada and become a registered apprentice to the province. This means everything to me, actually. This is like the beginning of my journey.
In a few clips, he demonstrates how he threads pipe for his work. Being a father to his children has helped him in a lot of ways by giving him the motivation and discipline to be able to show love by being in their lives with them each step of the way.
My fatherhood and the way I raise my kids and a lot of the good morals of it, right? Like dinner times and routines. Routines are big, yeah. So we have bedtimes and everything around here, and to have goals and dreams, that's the big thing.
Lequette was once lost, says he's finding his way back and getting in touch with his culture.
I was like, how to start a clothing business, right? Like, cause I had the artistic side of it, right? I was like, I knew I could make designs, right? I was like, I knew I had the artistic, I could see certain things in my head, and then I was like, I had the idea, right? But then I was like, how do I start? So I just looked up on YouTube videos of how to start a clothing business.
Lequette hopes his clothing designs hit home with others. You can check them out on his website, wearbyjared.com. Dylan Cloud, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And a big congrats to Cloud as well. His last day here at APTN. He recently graduated from Assiniboine Community College and heading back home to work at Res Radio in Long Plain. I know I'll be listening. Well, Indigenous women graduating high school, college, or university in Manitoba this year were celebrated at a special event put on by the provincial government today. It's the first of many to come as part of the province's Miniwayag Ikweye strategy through Women and Gender Equality Manitoba. Minister for Gender Equality, Nahani Fontaine, says the reason for the celebration was to shine a light on the accomplishments of Indigenous women instead of their struggles. Around 100 people attended. Victoria McIntosh is a residential and day school survivor. Despite that past, she later went back to university to become a teacher and is now graduating with a master's in education. She will soon start her PhD studies at the University of Manitoba and still carries the memories of her childhood with her in the way she teaches.
I want you to be who you're supposed to be, who you are. And this is what I tell all the young people that come into my classroom, and no matter where they come from, no matter who they are, this is your journey. I'm giving you something that, those obstacles. And if you feel, those obstacles that you can overcome, if I can do that, you can do that. But use your voice, even if it's shaking.
And a good message there. And that's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday, June the 26th. You can find more over on our website, APTN National, or aptn.news.ca, you'd think I would know, or over on our YouTube page, where you'll also find the extended version of today's Truth and Politics panel, plus much more. Join us live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when Creason will have your first look at the day's news. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.